Yo!
I'm Danny.
I'm Liangzo. And I'm Aiman. And today, we'll be talking if overthinking affects our daily life. Welcome to our podcast, Mind Over Matter. Alright, so, overthinking. What does the word overthinking means to you guys?
To me, I think it's when someone overcomplicate things that are like very straightforward, very simple.
What do you mean by that?
It's like, for an example, you're taking a MCQ exam. If the teacher were to put all the answers as B,
Okay.
but you notice it, but you know the answer is correct, but you overthink that it's wrong,
True. I've gone
and
that.
then you will change the answer
Yeah, I've
and
gone
you
through that before.
miss
Right,
the perfect test.
What about you, Danny?
For me, I think overthinking is when you think too much into the future. It's like you plan very ahead into the future. So for me, I wouldn't say that it's a very negative thing, as it helps me to be more prepared for the future. So for example, like let's say preparing for presentation slides for our ICAs. Yeah, so let's say I always overcomplicate my slides, and I always I always spend the longest thing about my template. When that's the least important thing. But I feel like it really helps me, and it helps me stay focused. Yeah.
Alright, nice. So basically, what overthinking is, it involves thinking about a certain topic or situation excessively, analyzing it for long periods of time. So when you overthink, you have a hard time getting your mind to focus on anything else, and it becomes consumed by one thing you are thinking about. So what you guys think are the signs of overthinking? Like some of the causes and signs.
Maybe OCD, depression even, or maybe even panic disorder.
What about you?
I think for me, some signs of overthinking will be having very bad social anxiety, as you always think about, how am I going to talk to this person? It's just a very simple conversation. Or how am I going to reply to a text? Yeah, that which makes it like I always overcomplicate what something that's very simple.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You guys got experience overthinking before? Like for me, when I was in secondary school, I wanted to confess to my crush. And then I wrote a poem for her. And then on the day itself, I want to give her, right? I overthink and then I just end up didn't give it to her. But you?
And then did you find out that she liked you?
No, she like my best friend.
Oh shit, that's tough.
Okay, you?
That's tough.
So for me, I think one example is maybe something so simple as when I'm in canteen ordering food, I always look at the menu, always keep repeating the menu name in my mind, so that when I say it to the receptionist, I don't mess it up, because it has happened to me a lot of times, and it's for me it's quite a very scary thing. Yeah, so I always overthink.
Okay, so some signs and causes of overthinking is firstly depression. When you overthink too much, it puts a toll on yourself lah. So you might be stressed and then become depressed. Then you don't want to eat, you don't want to communicate with your friends. Then secondly is GAD, which is generalized anxiety disorder. So you become anxious when you overthink and you don't know what to do with yourself. Then thirdly is OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. What does that affect how does overthinking make you become OCD? What do you think? OCD, because OCD is known as you being neat, right? So how does overthinking relate to OCD?
Maybe you overthink as to how easily accessible things must be, or maybe how it might affect the guests.
Or maybe it's like too much of an OCD lah, so you overthink whether this is neat or not, right?
Yeah, you just focus on that for
Okay, move on. Then next is panic disorder. So you become panicked because you overthink and you don't know what's right and what's wrong. Then second last is PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. And lastly is social anxiety disorder. Okay, so let's move on to personal experiences of overthinking. Yang, we shall start with you. Any serious overthinking experiences?
This happened to me in secondary school, but whenever I were to go for classes and maybe CCA, etc., I would think that like maybe people did not like me, or whatever I did might affect people. So I will overthink that and always ask them whether everything's okay, whether I affect them anyway. So yeah, it became quite bad to the point where like I would just ask even my own best friends about yeah. But overcame it a few years.
Any got any situations?
For me, I would say it goes way back to when I was primary school, because primary school I was very timid, and it was very difficult for me to open up to people, to make friends, and it's quite of a challenge. But as I got older, I realized how important connections are. So I sort of step out of my comfort zone, and I went out, approached people. Then now I have a great bunch of friends that's with me for maybe the past 5-6 years already. So I think um, overthinking will lead to anxiety, but you shouldn't let overthinking make it so be a negative thing. Overthinking is good, but it can help you plan for the future, but it shouldn't affect your lives negatively.
I see. So usually before presentations, right? I'm sure most of us are like nervous to present. Do you guys overthink before presentations? And what do you usually overthink about?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, when I have a presentation coming up, I'll always go out of my way, forming a script for myself. Then I'll spend like uh, the night before. I'll sacrifice my sleep just to memorize my script so that I can be more better prepared. Because this overthinking condition has I also had stage fright from it. So being in front of a class and talking to a huge group of people, it's a very scary experience for me. So I had to better prepare myself by forming a script so that it can make me more prepared for presentations.
So right, before exams in secondary school, like sometimes you study last minute, or even if you're well prepared, before the exam you would usually last minute read through the notes, right? Do you guys last minute read through the notes, or you are the just nonchalant kind that don't can just go through the exams YOLO like that?
To me, I will just count on my ability.
So you don't
Yeah.
read through notes, right?
No,
And you?
definitely not.
Maybe some of the exams where I know I don't have a hope in, then I just give up. No point. Might as well just get some good rest and then hope for the best the next day.
True. But usually most of my classmates would read through the notes, right? After that, for me, I'm just sitting there, just praying that I will pass lah.
Sleeping.
Brain up.
Sometimes, yeah, sleeping, praying, meditating before exams might calm you down, and also to prevent yourself from overthinking too much when answering questions during exam. Alright, moving on to the next part, pros and cons. What are the pros and cons of overthinking? Firstly, the first pros is that you'll be extra prepared. So overthinkers usually like to think into the future or simulate scenarios. For example, an IO, investigation officer, would obviously have to overthink of what are the potential scenarios that could have happened at the crime scene and what is going to potentially happen in the future as well. So that will be an example. Then also when before doing a presentation, you obviously have to think of what questions that the teachers are going to ask or prepare for the potential exams questions that's going to appear. What do you guys think? Any inputs that you'll be extra prepared?
Back to what I said previously. So, like my presentations, I'll always try to formulate a script and then practice it in my head over and over again. And I feel that really helps. That helps me build my confidence when um standing in front of the screen facing 20 or 30 over people, and I'm trying to talk to them and trying to elaborate on my points. So yeah, so I think I can agree with this point, Aiman. So I think um, overthinking really helps you to be more prepared for any future scenarios that's coming.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. When you are preparing presentation or something like that, you might not get the flow of the presentation right. So when you overthink, you go through the flow over and over again, and most of the time when you feel something is wrong, you still can make some last minute changes before you present that. That's a really good point.
Moving on to the second pros. You tend to be more empathetic, which I agree, because when you overthink, usually you would have gone through a lot of depressive experience or just experience in general, to the point that you can put yourself into other people's shoes and understand people more. What do you think?
That is true.
Become more
I feel
empathetic.
I feel like overthinking can be utilized as a skill. For example, in therapy, sometimes people might not feel very open to talk to the therapy on what is going on with their life and stuff. And when the therapist tries to come up with different scenarios to understand the patient, it might really form a slow but rigid connection between the therapy and the client as well.
Anything, Danny?
Yeah, I agree with that. So, overthinking means that you're always gonna put yourself in that person's shoes, because when you're talking to a person, right, you're thinking about, oh, how would they react? What can I say that such that they don't get angry, etc. So I think being able to overthink, right, can actually lead you to being empathizing with people easier. That's how I feel about that. Yeah.
True.
Alright guys, moving on to the cons. Okay, so firstly, keeping all the pros in mind, the cons of overthinking tend to outweigh the pros. So firstly, people will tend to get burnt out from the constant worrying and thinking, which will lead to a series of depressive episodes as well, and leading it to being stressed 24/7. So not only that, but you sometimes can miss opportunities as well. Like you would think like, what if I make a mistake during like an orientation, a rehearsal or stuff like that, and you just decide to not show up that day. But what if you didn't think that way and think positively? Something like, hey, it's just a screw up. It's okay. We can always do it again. So people will tend to miss opportunities whenever overthinking gets the better of them. Not only that, but at the end stage, people will tend to lose confidence completely, where they rarely communicate with others, socialize, and even volunteer to do even the most basic things. Okay, so do you guys have any experiences about that? Any personal experiences, people you know, maybe?
Personally, I don't overthink because I don't like to stress myself out, but I have a friend that overthinks all the time to the point that she becomes suicidal. But from her overthinking, I get to see the other side of life, the side of an overthinker, of what affects them, of how they think, what makes them emotional, or what affects what they're gonna do in their daily life. And it's quite interesting to see that their brain is always moving and thinking and always having an emotion whenever they're overthinking, whereas I'm over here just not overthinking and always being monotonous and not really much emotions to show lah. She's quite cool.
I mean, just to touch on youngsters' points, which I definitely agree with as a overthinker myself. So I think I agree with the fact that you really get burnt out, as it is really mentally draining. So like it's like your brain can never turn off, can never take a break, can never sleep properly until you feel reassured about the situation that's going on. So I feel like overthinking definitely has its pros, like you can plan for the future and all. But I feel like you cannot have you cannot overdo it. Yeah. So also by overthinking, we might have some uh opportunities that you might miss as well. So for example, like uh you have the opportunity to go up to stage to showcase your talents and whatnot, but then you choose to back out because you're scared and you don't dare, and you uh think of all the different scenarios, like what if the crowd doesn't like me, or like what if I do badly or if I mess up a tune, something like that. So I feel like overthinking affects everybody, but it's just how we deal with it and how we go about reducing that overthinking. Okay, now
Alright.
after talking about personal experience as well as some pros and cons, so right now let's go into some coping strategies. Okay, so guys, before I wrap up, let's get into something that's actually useful. How do we actually cope with overthinking? So, for me, a personal experience, so what I'll do is I'll tend to always go out and exercise whenever I feel like I have the urge of overthinking or I feel like my mind can't shut off, because I feel like when I go for runs, it makes me focus more on my body and my stamina and all, so it helps me focus better instead of all the thoughts that's running through my head, and it actually helps me to clear out my head, and I find it very useful by exercising. So how about you, Yang Zheng?
For me, I think it would be gaming. So, as previously mentioned, I have already overcome my overthinking. But when it was the worst part of overthinking that was like happening to me, I would tend to just switch on my PC, just game for like hours and hours, just to like have fun, spend time with friends. Even I focus on the game itself. Because like it is bad and good at the same time, but at that point of time there was nothing really going on, so I would feel like it's leaning towards the better side of it. So that is uh a lot of people think that it's controversial because like it's bad because like you're gonna be gaming for like hours and stuff. But I feel like it can be a good distraction with moderation. Yeah. Aiman?
Obviously for me, but Danny mentioned it already, I like to go for a run because it unclouds my clouded mind. But another way I reduce my overthinking is by talking to someone, probably my close friends. So usually if you're overthinking, you're filling up the bottle with water. You're filling up a full bottle with water. So you need to let some water out of the bottle. So by doing that, you need to unopen the bottle cap and then just talking to someone, just releases some of your thoughts. And also when you're talking, that person also can help you, give you opinions, Yeah. And so with that, we will end our podcast here. And don't overthink and just share our podcast. And with that, thank you for listening to Mind Over Matter.